Hello, our dear viewers. This is Dmitry and Rod with Conundrum, issue number 4, our fourth program. We're going strong. Today is the 13th of November, and we will be discussing the breakup of Russia. Is it possible? There are numerous scenarios, but how feasible it is, and since Rod lives in an ethnic region in Bashkortostan, we will ask him how he views the interethnic relations, because the people who want to destroy Russia, they always aim at causing fissures between different ethnic groups, between Russians mostly and Turkish speakers and some other national minority. At the end of the video, we're going to show you very interesting set of maps of how different people are planning to break up Russia. And if you enjoy the Lord of the Rings and all these things, if you like fantasy, you should watch them. It's really entertaining. Okay, so
exactly. Very amusing and very J.R.R. Tolkien-ish.
Yes, yeah. The occasion is also opportune because Russia has just left part of the Kherson region. And there is a lot of talk about that, and people are asking questions whether it's the complete defeat of Putin, whether it's it's all over for Russia.
Well, firstly, Dima, I think that you really have to look at the fact that those who are pushing for regime change tend to live more in the Washington region than in the Bashkortostan region. They don't even live in the Moscow region. This has been an ambition of the Beltway neocons since Russia became Russia after the fall of the Soviet Union. And when Yeltsin was a puppet of the Clinton administration and their acolytes. So, they were happy with Russia to remain as Russia as long as it was subservient and had a puppet government, and their banks and major corporations were able to plunder the natural resources with the help of some friendly locals, which is known as oligarchs, financed by Western banks to buy major Russian assets for cents on the dollar. They were extremely happy. However, that all changed in 2000 when Vladimir Putin became president. And by 2003, it was pretty obvious to both the oligarchs, their supporters, and their friends in the Beltway that the normal service had not only not been resumed, it was curtailed and was not actually going to happen again. Since 2003, when Russia basically started asserting its own foreign policy and its policy towards its friends and relationships towards other countries, not necessarily following the hegemony of America, brought into conflict. We saw this where Russia was powerless to do anything about the situation in Iraq, because it hadn't built up enough power. But by the time the Gaddafi situation came around, they were voicing their opinions. And by the time of the Syria conflict, which was again instigated by the West, Russia actually physically intervened.
The analysis is absolutely correct. I mean, the oligarch power was strong with with the West, and the other way around too. So, but Putin did change a lot of things, and you have to give him his due. It is all true. Yeah.
Okay, Dima. But also, if we talk, I just mentioned at the end there of my opening monologue, the Syria situation. It was around the time of the Syria situation that we saw the conflict initially flare up in the Ukraine.
Yes.
The Ukraine situation was not a spontaneous uprising by any stretch of the imagination. Ukraine was negotiating with the EU and also with Russia on particular economic agreements. The presidency of the Ukraine had alternated between pro-Russian and anti-Russian factions. It's a simple fact of the ethnic makeup of the Ukraine is the one party would get power and fall from favour by the time of the next election, and the opposite team would get in. And this kept going since that had been happening since 1991. In 2014, the US State Department, through Victoria Nuland and various others, had decided that they wanted to exacerbate the situation in the Ukraine and pull it into the orbit of NATO and basically surround Russia from the Black Sea to the Baltic. So the plan was to engineer a coup in the Ukraine, which they obviously did, but the major plank of the plan that didn't actually work out was the fact that they expected to take the Crimea. Now, the strategic value of the Crimea was the Russian warm water base at Sevastopol, which has been a Russian naval port since 1793 under Catherine the Great. And indeed, Crimea has only been part of the Ukraine since 1955, when Khrushchev gifted it to the Ukraine.
At his wife's birthdays, his wife was Ukrainian, so it was his little.
Yeah. So the main object of the exercise was to take over the Crimean naval base and hand it to the NATO, and basically Russia would no longer have a warm water port for its fleet and would complete the surrounding of it. Unfortunately, they miscalculated, like most of the NATO events and EU events. They all sound great on paper, but the amount of actual intelligence is seriously lacking, and they didn't realize that there were 30,000 military personnel, Russian military personnel, in the Crimea, and only a few hundred Ukrainian military. So they were politely asked to leave, and from what I understand from people on the ground, they actually left without firing a shot.
Yeah, just two people died in the whole affair, so that was quite, almost completely bloodless. Yes.
So that was the start of this whole situation in the Ukraine. Obviously, the major ethnic areas of the Donbass, the Donetsk and Lugansk areas, majority ethnic Russian decided they didn't want to be part of this pro-EU, but they wanted a certain level of autonomy. And that was initially discussed, and then a civil war broke out. The government in Kiev decided that they were going to crush these insurgents, as they called them. A Minsk agreement was called between France, Germany, the Ukraine, and Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republic. Then there was a second one, neither of which were adhered to. Germany and France, who were supposed to uphold the agreement, didn't. And so for 7 years, almost 8 years, you had a standoff between the People's Republics of Lugansk and Donetsk in conflict with the Ukraine. Right. That's the origins of it.
Yeah.
In that 8 years, you had NATO troops fortifying the Ukrainians in their conflict.
Yes. They spent a lot of effort, and the fortifications in the Donbass region in the east of Ukraine are formidable. Not easily taken. Yes, so that was with the great help of Ukraine's Western friends, for sure. Yeah. All types of help: logistical, material, financial. Yes.
So that was basically the reason that the insurgency then really took off in February this year was the Russians had to preempt an attack that was being readied by the Ukrainians.
Right.
And if they had allowed the Ukrainians to enter Donetsk and Lugansk, it would have been impossible to get them out because of it being urban fighting and urban area fighting, and the Russians couldn't afford this. We already saw when they fighting for the city of Mariupol of how deadly and dangerous that type of urban warfare is.
Right. No, it is. It is. It is. It was a great loss, actually. Yes, and yeah, I have my wife has a woman from Mariupol working for her, and yeah, her family disappeared for 2 weeks, then they reappeared. Yeah, it was a great deal of stress and human suffering and unnecessary suffering, actually. Because Mariupol was surrounded, and it was destined to fall. So all this posturing and unnecessary, dead people. Yeah, it was just Ukraine is very adventurous, very adventurous.
Yeah. So
Everything for
Dima,
the image.
so Dima, that was the start, and of course, this was at the start of the major imposition of sanctions. Yes, we've had sanctions since 2014. Ban on foodstuffs, etc. But this was the shock and awe sanction. This was the U.S. designed sanctions that were going to bring Russia to its knees and affect the regime change, which has been the object of the exercise, as we've said, since 2014. The simmering resentment on the Beltway against Russia, and they thought that by cutting Russia off through the SWIFT channels, it would decimate the currency, it would turn the people against it. And of course, like everything, they didn't actually work out that they were more dependent on Russia than Russia was dependent on them. I mean, you suddenly cannot replace Russia's energy resources overnight. In fact, what makes me laugh in the Russia is doing X, Russia is doing Y, Russia is still supplying gas through the Ukraine in the amount of 30 million cubic meters every single day, and it's paying the Ukraine for the transit.
Yeah. Russia is observing her obligations religiously. Yes.
Correct. It's
Following
contractual
her.
obligations, and it's the West that have not. For example, Germany has nationalized Gazprom's assets in Germany, and under those assets, the German company of Gazprom had an obligation to supply cargoes of LNG to India. Now, over the last 6 months, the Germans have stolen the cargoes that were destined to go to India. And India is not very happy about it. And the Germans and the Americans can't understand why India doesn't want to join the anti-Russian coalition.
Yeah. Yeah, this privateer behavior is, that's. Where's the sacred rights of property? Where are they? Where did they?
Sacred rights of property ceased to exist. In fact, the rule of law. I've been a financial journalist based in and out of London for the last 40 years. And Russian companies and global companies used to have their contracts certified under English law because they felt that English law, my word is my bond, contracts are sacred, and it was a place where you could do business and contracts would be respected. Now, having stolen 350 billion of Russian assets, frozen, and we'll use them for the rebuilding of the Ukraine. If you believe that, I've got a bridge in New York to sell you.
Yes. Yeah. No. The whole thing is sad, tragic, and ridiculous at the same time. It's a clown world, borrowing Christopher's expression.
This comes back to regime change. The problem with the Americans and the Beltway particularly is they seem to think that regime change will favor them. That by getting rid of Putin, they will be able to install one of their own puppets. The way of they did back in the 1990s. in my opinion, the major Atlanticists who favor subservience and integration with the Western institution have become marginalized within Russia and are nowhere likely to gain power. And this is only my personal opinion, but should Putin, which I think is unlikely, be forced from power, they're going to get somebody who is a lot harder on and a lot nastier towards the West. I mean, Putin's come under severe criticism for being too gentle and too easy on the Ukrainians over the last 6 months.
Yeah,
And too quick to make concessions and refer to these lying, cheating fiends in the West as his friends and partners.
Yes. No. Putin isn't considered a fire breather. There are people who, would be like plus zero more radical and.
Much worse than even Zhirinovsky was.
Yeah. No, Zhirinovsky was he was a political animal. He was not as scary as he wanted to paint himself. But there are people who are really, really bad, like street bad, So
So you mentioned earlier, I live in Bashkortostan. Well, Bashkortostan is one of the many republics in Russia. And ethnically, the Bashkirs make up about 23%. We have Chuvash, we have Mari. My wife is a Mari from the Republic originally of Mariau.
Right.
We have the majority, though, are Slav Russians. And Russia, the city has been going for 473 years. And during that time, there's been not one ethnic conflict. And my neighbors are Bashkirs, Slavs, Chuvash. I say my wife is Marie. We all live alongside each other. There's no, like you find in America or in Europe particularly, ethnic areas. There's no area of Ufa that you can say, well, that's a Bashkir area, or that's a Chuvash area, or that's a Jewish quarter. Most cities, for example, Prague or whatever, have a Jewish quarter, London has a Jewish area, Golders Green, it's well known, etc. But here we have none. And that's the thing about Russia. Within Moscow, for example, I've lived in Moscow and I never found a particular ethnic area. You live there. Do you know of any particular ethnic area?
No. There are Moscow is roughly subdivided into the west and east east is somewhat more industrial, and there are more migrants living there. But it's not really an ethnic area. It's all mixed. It's all mixed. Yeah. There are better off parts of Moscow and worse off, but. It's still, there are no ghettos.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing about Russia. In New York, you've got the Upper East Side, that's very fancy, and the Upper West Side alongside Central Park, etc. And on the further south, it's changed a lot now, but you used to have Hell's Kitchen and some of the literally, that were the not well-off areas, and
South Boston was Irish, and
Yeah. And obviously Harlem, North Manhattan was totally an ethnic area.
Yeah.
Whereas we don't have that in Russia.
Yeah.
The other one of the problems is a lack of nationalism inside. I mean, Bashkiria. People are proud Bashkirs, but they don't hate the Tatars in Tatarstan who are next door. They're just fellow Russians,
Right.
The Chuvash and nobody says, oh, I don't like the Marie or whatever. Russians, it's one of the major things is Russians are the first and foremost Russians. My wife is Marie, but first and foremost, she's Russian. Right?
Yeah. Like when you say that your wife is Marie, could you explain how, on a domestic level, how does it
Okay.
Does
It's
she?
an ethnic minority group from
Yeah.
originate from the Republic of Marial. These are an ethnic group that are part of the Finno-Ugric group. Their language is similar to Finnish, Estonian, and Hungarian. They are from a forested area just to the northeast of Kazan, and it's a republic. They're characterized by the pale white skin and very dark hair. They're known as the people of the forest because up until a couple of hundred years ago, they were pagans.
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
are just yet another ethnic group in Russia.
Right. So they're basically like European looking because there are.
Yeah, totally. Where Bashkirs tend to look slightly Asiatic or Turkic.
Yes. And they speak Turkic as well.
Yeah,
And
it's Turkic,
Tatar.
Bashkir language. Where the Mari are a Finno-Ugric, so it's a kind of weird language. I don't know if you've listened to people trying to speak Hungarian. I
Yes. It's very difficult. How many of them speak their language, by the way? Do they?
I think certainly at 20-25%, as far as I'm aware. I have an extended Mari family, which we visit in Yashkarala, which is a beautiful city. There's some people, anybody wants to look it up, it's well worth looking up on the internet. There's some interesting videos of it. It's a lovely city.
Right.
So it's the people are proud of their heritage and keep their culture alive.
Right.
Again, it's similar to Chuvash and Bashkirs. They are very much into keeping their cultural traditions alive.
Right. And religion-wise, Bashkirs are Muslims mostly.
Yeah, but they're mostly Muslims. Although, unlike the Muslims that you get in the West, who've come from the Indian subcontinent or whatever, they don't wear hijabs or niqabs or Arabic clothes or whatever. I mean, my next door neighbor, Gulia, is nominally a Muslim, and the only thing I notice about her being a Muslim is she doesn't eat pork. Other than that,
Right.
she enjoys a glass of wine and she actually smokes cigarettes. So, she's not exactly a serious, strict.
Right. So ethnic Muslims, basically. Yeah, there is a divide, like Muslims in the south of Russia, in the Caucasus regions. Yeah, they're more strictly observant, more conservative. But the ones along the Volga River, that's basically. Yeah, they're very slowly assimilating. Actually, I mean, to put it bluntly, it's they're being. It's not they're being Russianized; they're just Russianizing themselves, I suppose, because in a very soft and unaggressive way. It's
I mean, the problem you mentioned Chechnya and Dagestan, but that really comes from the influence of the Salafists and Saudi Arabia. And the export by Saudi Arabia of these radical type, which hasn't really taken off in the rest of Russia.
No. They were like tiny enclaves, and they got radicalized, and there was trouble, but now there is trouble no more. In this respect, Russians are tolerant. This is what this is probably their most. A trait of Russians that deserves to be praised. I would say praised the most, because it's not this virtue signaling, modeling, crap about celebrating cultures. It's a day-to-day existence with one another. That's
Russia is a multicultural country with over 98 ethnic groups who all live amongst each other, united in the fact that they're Russian. So they're not. They don't see themselves as Russians. Are a people, right? They might be ethnically diverse, but they're Russians to a core.
Right. Should we?
One of the reasons that attempting to regime change by the West is never going to work, because whether you're in Kaliningrad or you're in Vladivostok, you see yourself as Russian.
Right. No, for sure. For the majority of people, yes. There are, for example, in Tatarstan, Tatars are I think the second or the third most numerous ethnic group in Russia after Russians, maybe after Ukrainians, or yeah, I don't know. There are quite a few of them. There are lots of them in Moscow, for example. There is a town in Tatarstan where people speak mostly Tatar. You know, some people don't even speak Russian, but it is a great exception. On the other hand, it shows you that it's possible to do in Russia. Not to speak Russian, and no one persecutes them for it.
Sure.
If you live in Russia, of course, you would have to speak Russian. It's really hard to just to get along on the day-to-day level. But yeah, there are places where people don't. So and same in the Caucasus.
Sure. Yeah, so when it comes to the Western attempts to break it up, yes, they have plans of hiving parts of it off to under Chinese influence and parts under European influence. They're, as we say in English, they're barking up the wrong tree. These are just plans that have no chance of ever coming to fruition.
We prepared a little insert about different maps of Russia. The breakup plans, different scenarios of Russia being broken up. Here it is.
So the first of these maps presupposes that Russia will be taken apart and large bits of the eastern part of Russia will be given over to China. So here is the modern Russian border right here. It goes. And you see that the Inner Mongolia, what they used to call, today it is in independent states, Russian Republic of Tuva, which is the region in Russia, Amurskaya Oblast and Khabarovsky Krai and Sakhalin, all will go to China, and the Kurils will be returned to Japan. These orange territories, so that the entirety of eastern and central Siberia will be given over to China for lease with no time limits for $10 billion a year. This green is the demilitarized zone, which includes Western Siberia and Urals as well, part of Urals, and Kazakhstan. And here in the green zone, the citizens of China will receive the same rights as the Russian citizens, and the same will happen to Kazakhstan. So Kazakhstan, it says, will give up military, its army, and there is going to be like a Chinese domination here as well. And this is Russia. This is how Russia will look under this scenario. This here is a similar scenario, a little changed though. See, southern Siberia goes to China, and the entirety of northern, eastern, and central Siberia will become the part of the United States, США. This is a scenario according to the Houston Project. I think this map comes from communists, Russian communists. And this will go to Japan, Russian Far East. Russian South, European South, and Southern Central regions will go to Turkey. This purple will go to Germany, and this is Norway, Kola Peninsula, and this is how Russia will look under this scenario. And all these scenarios, they're just taken out of the blue completely. It doesn't really mean anything. There is no unity. For example, this here says Siberia. There is no internal unity among all these regions. Really not. They're all part of Russia. It's not like there was a territorial unit called Siberia sometime in the past and then Russians occupied. No, not really. Here it says north, so the Russian north and northwest of Siberia will be a north independent states. Eastern Prussia, in Germanlandia, it's an independent state too. This is Zalesia, so this is basically a Russia, and this is the Kazakhia, Cossack state, and the Urals. And this purple is another ethnic region as well, with ethnic republics along the Volga River, so they're here. Yeah, and this here is like more in accordance with today's borders of national republics, even though these republics, the majority of them do not have the titular nationality in the majority. So, for example, In Bashkortostan, there are like 30% of Bashkir. The majority of most of these regions are Russians. And here in the north, that'd be like 1 or 2%, really, of the people living there belonging to the main nationality. Maybe 10%, so this is very funny. Khazaria, Caucasian Federation, ridiculous, all of this, honestly. Democratic Republic of Yakutia, and this is Russia, okay? This is Russia. None of these states have had any historical past. Altai Khaganate, well, something like that existed 1300 years ago, except for Tuva. Yes, Tuva was a semi-independent region in 1944. It's very poor, famous for the great consumption of alcohol. And there is a Jewish republic, by the way. You're probably not aware. There is a separate Jewish region. It was organized by Stalin after the Second World War, and there are still about 8,000 Jews remaining here. Most of them are immigrating to Israel, but there are some still remaining. And that's a variation on the same theme, but there is a number of residents given for each new state. So Moscow Republic will be the most populated with 30 million people. Moscow Republic. Sounds moronic, honestly. And this is funny. Soviet Federation, because these regions are like, they always vote for communists. It's the Russian Black Earth regions, and they're famous for voting for communists. So Soviet Federation is the second most populated region with 20 million people. And all the rest is basically, here again, it's ethnic. Kosakia. This is pretty much the same. Again, Russian regions will be organized into small states, even though none of these states ever existed. And this is the most detailed of these maps with flags and all this. There is this forum, Free Nations of Russia, which took place in Prague, in the Czech Republic, like several months ago. They have a video on YouTube. They give fringe a new meaning, let me tell you. It's really freakishly weird, So there is all these flags. Again, it's, all these states will appear. But the names of these states, first off, this is Moscow Republic again. It's this small little thing, to pull the teeth out of the Russian bear completely, to immobilize it. And this here is Smolensk. There is a city of Smolensk, and the people who, it's probably done for the State Department or something. They call it Smolensk. It's not a word in Russian, but there is land kind of in it. So, and this is beautiful. The United States of Siberia with the capital in Novosibirsk with like this green-blue American flag. Lord, what a bunch of clowns! This is clown world. I'm going to plagiarize Christophoro. And all these, tiny states in the Caucasus, and of course, these are ethnic republics along the Volga River, and there is some more ethnic states, and just this is really amusing. This is really, really funny,
Okay, so you guys probably enjoyed these maps. It's quite very entertaining, and people who drew them, the last one especially, they have a great, they should write fantasy. That's
a great imagination, David.
Yes, great imagination, and but these scenarios are. Yeah, I wouldn't. If we just putting aside that I'm Russian, live in Russia, I wouldn't be putting my money on it. No. Sure.
I personally, Dima, I know that Putin will be in power much longer than Biden will, or any other Western leader who's currently in power, as the Zelensky curse seems to be knocking them down like flies. I mean, there was Johnson, then Truss in the UK, and the various other ones have gone. And I reckon by the end of this year, Sergeant Schultz in Germany might be the next candidate for.
Yes. He's right for the picking, for sure. Yeah. All right, so thank you, our dear viewers, and thank you, Rod. And do not forget to check out Rod's research. Very valuable, do not forget. And subscribe and like us and share this very interesting video. We enjoyed making it, and we hope that you enjoyed watching it.
Goodbye.
All right. Cheers. Cheers.